So let's start it.
Let's go.
Good morning.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah. From navigating the corridors of political theory to mastering the world of tech, our guest today is a true embodiment of reinvention. She has shattered boundaries, moving from analyzing societal structures to becoming a self-taught software engineer, composer, and an innovative entrepreneur. She is the force of nature in the insurtech industry, a mentor for women in tech, and a creative mind at the intersection of art and artificial intelligence. Today, we're diving into the story of a woman who redefines success on her own terms. Please join me in welcoming Nathalia Rus.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this wonderful introduction, which sounds very complimentary. So thank you so much.
You are indeed a perfect, a dream, actually. The things you have achieved are everything a girl would dream to be. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, so your journey is nothing short of extraordinary, and the blending diverse disciplines and breaking new ground in tech. So I'm sure our listeners are eager to know more about what drives you. So let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to transition from studying politics to a career in technology and software engineering?
Yeah, sure. So I actually really wanted to study politics at the start of my career because I wanted to bring a lot of good, positive change in society. And I realized, unfortunately, in my short bursts of experiences in international organizations that it was actually not probably the best places really where I could do that based on my skill sets and based on my personality. The changes that you may want to pass on, for example, laws and so on, it might take 7 years to discuss them. It might take a long time to see anything that you want to happen to actually take place in society. However, I was told that, on the private sector, on the other hand, you could bring change in society very fast. You can be productive very fast, and you can touch the lives of even more people across borders on things that actually really does impact their everyday life. We all have been using at least, in my experience in the UK and in France, apps for healthcare, which really made it more convenient to book a GP appointment. Like those sort of things, for example, if you wanted to change that within international organizations, you would be one of many, and the change that you have would be very dependent on politics, on whether you get promoted for a reason which is completely different from the change that you've made. Whereas when you work in tech, when you work in the private sector, you are way more focused on the actual immediate change that you're giving to people. And the truth there rules more, in business. There's no politics. It's either the consumers like what you're giving them and profit and benefit from what you're giving them, or they don't. It's the ultimate truth place. And so that's why, in what motivated me, the tech industry in the private sector, to me, was a much better choice to be able to bring on some positive change.
So you've always had this positive mindset about helping people.
And as in, the thing which I think I did not appreciate when I grew up was how every single person has a way to contribute positively to society, and you don't have to be in politics and so on. And actually, a lot of the people who work in politics may never see any impacts on what they do. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and sometimes even the law that it passes sometimes actually make things worse. Whereas, anyone that creates, for example, I have vitamins, you have to have someone who don't just create the vitamin, but also someone who creates the design of the bottle. That's another company which has nothing to do with health. You have to have a designer who makes it so that people understand very clearly what the vitamin is there for. So every single person in society, no matter their skill sets, can collaborate very positively without the cliche of working in politics for defending ideas and so on. We actually, a lot of them are, I think, hurting some people in society. So it was just this realization that theory and practice mean different things, and you can have more practical good in society by doing a business. And it doesn't have to be grand, like for example Metas, my business for writers. I really enjoy being told by email, hey, I've had the most amazing weekend in my life because I could finally organize my thoughts to write a story, my novel. And I really had a fantastic time, imagining my characters, how they would be like. My world building now is super cool. And having just people know that they have a good experience and they've enjoyed themselves and they could really indulge in their art and their worlds and so on. That to me is a very positive experience on the creativity of someone. So you have to look at what you're doing on that large scale perspective, and for example with custodian, with cars, we are doing insurance for collectors or anyone who loves their car, which has a specialist car. And we, for example, had people who could not get insurance before their cars because they were too young, but they really loved their cars and they were really taking care of them, so they could find insurance with us and drive their cars safely. Or for example, someone was having a BMW car and they did some modifications on it because they loved the car and they wanted to have fun with it and engineering with it, and they couldn't get insured anymore because they changed their car. However, the car, we found, made the changes that they've made to the car made it more safe. So actually they should have cheaper insurance, which we give them. So I just hope that a lot of people out there, especially young people, they protest in the streets for ideas and so on. But I think it's a dangerous idea that the best way to help people is to go on the streets and protest. The best way to help people is to solve problems of people and enhance the life of people around you. And when you protest, you're not solving anything. You're not even bringing attention to the subject, because people actually don't really like you when you're noisy in the streets. Like, for example, what happened with the Stop Oil in the UK, right? People were blocking streets and were throwing tomato soups at art pieces. I'm very worried for these young people, because if they wanted to save the planet, then great, beautiful, go study a science subject, which is difficult, right? Go try to find a solution, because right now what you're doing is you're alienating your cause. You're not making good points. People look at you like you're an extremist, and you're not helping the cause, and you're actually not even finding solutions. And I'm actually was one of these people. When I was young, I thought politics was the only way to be doing good, and so I hope that my voice can encourage people who like the idea of saving the world, or they're like, oh, do I want to go into STEM or into the world of ideas and so on. The world of STEM, the world of tech, is full of people who can truly make so much more changes than you think. Elon Musk is an obvious example as well, where whether you like his politics or not, when you look at facts and what his companies have done, Tesla introduced the idea of electric vehicles. Whether that's good or bad, then at least we can progress and debate on whether it's actually better for the environment, worse for the environment, what would be the other alternatives for, the other sort of fuels. At least it pushes the conversation that way. So, that's, I guess, my view on how I changed from politics to tech, and why actually it makes more sense than you may think it does.
So let's move on to the next question. So what motivated you to co-found Custodian? What were the challenges that you faced in the early stages of the startup?
Yeah, so what motivated me to create Custodian was the team, because I knew that I wanted to create a company. I knew that I really like the idea of being a founder, not for the lifestyle and so on. Actually, that's largely glamorized in the idea of it. The reality of it is very different. But because I like the idea that you are helping the economy to create jobs, you're helping the economy to find a more, solving more problems to people out there who are willing to pay for a service that you provide because you're making their life easier. So to me, it was not so much what is the thing you're doing, it was more the fact that you were doing something, and with whom. And I have worked with Jeremy Hindle, one of my co-founders in London, for like around 6 months to a year on a software engineering contract. And at the end of my
before
contract,
custodian. That was before
yes,
custodian.
before custodian.
Okay.
Yeah, I was working with Jeremy, and who was mentoring me actually, and we can discuss that in a bit.
Later.
And so he was my mentor, and someone from his school that he knows from a very long time approached him, Charles Clegg, who is a car owner. You know, he owns many different cars, and he is passionate about cars and so on. And he basically said there are some problems needing fixing there, and so he approached Jeremy to co-found Custodian. Jeremy basically reached out to me, being there like, do you want to be in charge of the consumer-facing part of the application? You know, the product in terms of like the web application, the iOS app, like the design, the vibe of the whole platform. And I said yes. So to me, it was more the team. I had worked with Jeremy. He was my mentor. I knew that he's extremely smart. He's literally a genius. So I knew that this could not really go wrong. And Charles as well has the absolute knowledge around car ownership. Yeah. And you need to have someone who has a business understanding of the problem in business. Yeah. So I thought, and I, on the other hand, you know, I mean, on front end and make sure that the consumers have a really good experience digitally. So all of us together, I thought we were a winning team. So you don't necessarily need to look at the idea on itself. Of course, the idea needs to be an idea that can win the business, like win the markets, sure. But in terms of whether it's something that you know personally, like for example, I can't drive and I'm scared of speed, right? Like as long as you like the team, as long as you like the executing on the idea, and as long as you think that what you're doing is good, can work, and can create job opportunities in the country, then you can go for it.
Yeah. And what were the challenges that you faced during this
there were a lot of challenges. There were a lot of challenges. Well, we started the company right before COVID hit, right? So we had an office and we had plans for having events for launching the app and so on. That's every problem in a startup turns as an opportunity depending on how you react to it. So actually COVID ended up being for us quite a blessing, because we basically cancelled our physical events plan to instead focus on marketing online, which turns out to be way more scalable, and you can actually, you know, with every dollar that you spend, you can get a better CPA, cost per acquisition. But that was just like an interesting shift in our head where we had plans and everything was going well, and then we had to shut the office. We had to completely change everything we were doing. We had to find another plan. We were not sure whether it would work as well. You know, raising money in an environment where the economy is kind of shutting down in fintech was interesting the past year. So, you know, there's that, like navigating the whole fundraising process. It was also all of the technical challenges to make sure that you were building kind of like fast enough and the right things as well to make sure you have product market fit. So there were a lot of challenges, but the idea is that your job as a founder basically is to find solutions to every single challenge that you see, and your life is just full of challenge. So you just have to find solutions every day.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Now, okay, so let's move on to your next startup, that is Metos. So
it's not really a next startup. It's more something that I was doing on the weekends while I was doing Custodian to actually learn new technologies. So for example, I knew that I would have to make the iOS app of Custodian in the next months. And I never had done an iOS app, and I never had coded in React Native. So I said, okay, well, I need to learn on the weekends so that when I actually start coding with Custodian, I know what I'm doing. And I learned by doing Metos as a project to motivate me to learn that. and then I could code then the custodian iOS native app very fast. I actually didn't publish the Metas iOS app on iOS stores because I did not want to have like the headaches of any like bug reports and so on if I were too busy to deal with it, because my focus is on custodian. But for example, as well, I needed to learn Next.js as opposed to just React and server-side rendering, and I decided to test it first with Metas by doing the web application in Next.js, before I then on custodian used those skills to migrate our marketplace to Next.js. So my case is interesting regarding that because it's a business that helps me perform better at my actually startup. It's kind of like my playground where I personally love writing, I love reading books and so on. So the idea here is something which is very dear to me. So I'm motivated on the weekend to basically work on it and learn new skills so that on custodian I can actually apply those skills. So it's a bit different than a next startup. It's like kind of like together, all of them together.
Yeah. So like what's the story behind Metas? Like now you said it's like just a side something you started for fun. So like what's the story behind Metas and what is Metas and how does it support the writers?
Yeah. So I am a very sad person in that I love to write, but I'm French and I live in the UK.
Yeah.
So I lost my French because I don't live in France anymore and I haven't spoken French in a very long time. And all of my friends are international people, so I don't speak French.
Yeah.
And I live in the UK, however, I'm still not fluent with the ability to write a novel in English because my English will never, ever be the same as a person who grew up in Britain. Like a lot of vocabulary.
The native speakers,
I don't have that. So I basically was there like, well, I still love to have ideas around world building, characters and so on, that, you know, one day when I'm retired or whatever, who knows, if I have a better English over time, I could try to make a novel, or if I get my French back, you know, but I couldn't give up the idea of just imagining and just creating stories, even if I do not completely write them. And for that, I was looking for a tool, you know, like a world building tool or a tool to help me imagine characters and organize my plot and organize family trees and so on. And all of the tools that I found, in my opinion, were not meeting my expectations. They were either too expensive for what they were providing me, or the UI, the user experience was, in my opinion, very poor. I could not immerse myself because it was just not looking nice. And also the sort of data and options that they were giving you were very like, kind of like RPG style, but not in a very advanced manner. It was like, your character is either an elf or a dwarf or a human. And it's like, well, no. You know, when you create a world, sometimes you want to get actually a bit more creative with it. So I said, okay, well, I'm just going to create my own platform, which does what I want. And it turns out that, you know, with everyone online who contacts me, where they're like, oh my God, I was looking for something like that for years. I've been using all of these other tools, wishing it was something like Metas. So it has completely grown organically. I have absolutely no budget for marketing, or maybe like £20 that I gave to like Google Ads for like a test. And it's been pretty fun to see like an incredible product market fit with writers out there who just love to organize their stories on it. And it's been so fun building because I can use it myself every single day. I mean, I really needed a platform like that. So when you solve a problem that you had with your own skill sets, it's a very satisfying feeling.
That's so true. And it's like so amazing that you see a problem, and if there's no solution for it, you find a solution. Yeah, that's such an amazing mindset you have. I really admire it.
I think more people should have that mindset, you know. It's a mindset that a lot of people in the US, for example, have. And you have to remember that the US is is the most powerful country on earth, basically, you know. And I think there's a reason for that. I think it's a mindset in the population where they want to create, you know, they're not scared of the word consumer. Like it's not bad to have consumers in a society. Of course, you can have problems with that that comes, but you have to look at the alternatives. You know, the alternative of capitalism is what? It's what, you know, like politics, like communism. What is it? And if you look at in practice what that brought, the population suffered even more. So you kind of have to, you know, look at it and understand that yes, you can be part of it. You can actively create.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So as someone who has been involved in initiatives like Yeah Girls Code, what do you believe are the biggest challenges and opportunities for women in tech these days?
So I feel like finally in society, we have come to a point where when I say Yeah Girls Code, I almost feel like this is dated. You know, like 10 years ago, I think you see no women, at least in France when I grew up, there was just no women developers. Nowadays, it's starting to be, they're like, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. I think the work that we've done, because I've done a Yeah Girls Code back in 2017, and it was not just me, it was a lot of other people who kind of brought up this kind of glamour aspect to tech just to bring awareness. And so that some women would consider the field because it's out there and they can see it on their social media. Now, I think maybe not that it has gone too far, but when you look at what people have put in place, thinking that they were doing good for us, but the whole like diversity and inclusion hiring quotas, that I think is backfiring in that it kind of makes you wonder, are you here because you fill the quota, or are you here because you're actually good? And when people don't know, that actually hurts your credibility. Whereas before, if you were a woman in tech, it's like, oh my God, she must be really good because the obstacles that she must have had to get there must have been huge. And they were. So it was impressive. But now I think we've gone too far in enforcing quotas and so on, instead of just looking at meritocracy. I think what I was fighting for, and I'm still fighting for to an extent, is, look, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. Yeah, girls can code too. That was the only message. It was not, you have to have 50% of women in your company who are coding, because then it means you're doing something wrong. And by the way, I say that I actually happen to have 50% split in my company between women and men, but that was not something that I looked for. I genuinely looked for the best candidates and so on. And so that actually hurts our ability, because when I go out there and I say, oh, we have a 50% split, they say, oh no, you're one of those. And I'm like, no, actually, like, I understand it's a problem when some companies do that, and I think there were also some problems that were led in the movement when, for example, you started to have coding schools which were only open for girls. Because personally, the way that I grew up, at least, maybe in the next generation it will be different, but personally, with people of my age who were at the age of going to coding camps, right? Like, men were introduced to tech and to things which were more technical at a younger age. So they are actually more knowledgeable about things when you go to a coding camp in general, and usually they are very willing to help out. Which means that the people that I learned the most when I was in hackathons and when I was in my coding bootcamp were men. You know, and it was not because they are smarter in general. It's generally because of the fact that they grew up in an environment with parents and so on, which steered them towards STEM subjects earlier in life. They just knew more at the same point of time, and you can see that in some, I won't say names to avoid any scandals or whatever, but controversy. But I have seen the program of some girls coding camps, and the program is genuinely with a bar which is quite low, and that hurts women, because then those coding camps, because they have such good PR, they say, oh, we are women coding or whatever, they then have not contracts but like partnerships with big companies and HR departments to hire them. But then they go in those companies and then they are not as good, they have to stay because there's a quota and so on. And then if they get in trouble, then they are told, oh, it's because the company is sexist and whatever. It's not. So I think there's a fine balance. I think that, and I think it's actually making our lives sometimes even harder, because I think most men would have no problem nowadays to say, yes, men can code as well. Sorry, men and women can code the same. Because of the problem of the credibility aspect, because of some inclusion metrics which went a bit too far regarding quota rather than meritocracy, that actually backfired. And a lot of guys, I'm sure that if I told them 8 years ago, do you agree with this? Nowadays, they would say, yes, but. Whereas before, they would say, yes, sure. So I think we reached a peak, a few years ago, when we finally all came together. And now I think it went slightly too far, and the credibility is now a problem as well. So it's a fine balance, So I'm called code, and my message is literally just girls can code as well, not in your face. We can code better than you. Do you see what I mean? So
1 second.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay. I think that's it for that question. So let's go to your versatility. So how do you manage to balance your work in technology with your interests in Muay Thai and music?
So it takes a lot of energy, I would say. And having a fitness hobby, like Muay Thai, for example, or calisthenics or whatever, like doing sports gives you energy. Like that's for sure. Also, doing something that you love gives you energy, and I'm lucky that I genuinely love my work. I genuinely love coding. I genuinely love what I'm doing. I feel grateful, and that gives you a lot of energy, right? Like I remember some periods of my life when I was working in banking and so on, like I had literally no soul or energy because I genuinely did not like what I was doing. So that helps, So I can't speak for everyone, because I know that everyone will have their own issues that they need to sort out first before they can do these sort of things, and that's completely fine. I also don't have kids, and I do want to have kids one day, but right now we do not have. And it also motivates me to do a lot of things, because I know that it's a privilege that I have right now to have so much time on my hands. That once you have responsibilities, you may not have that much time. So I think it's really my energy comes from appreciating the fact that I can do those things. And therefore I can't not do them. Like when I'm at my flat in the evening and I look at it, I'm like, oh, I'm lazy to go to the gym, or I'm lazy to paint, or I'm lazy to do music. I'm reminding myself every single time, hold on a sec, you have no excuse. Like you can. There's no baby crying next door. There's no like about the fact that you hate your job. Like come on, like there's one time in your life where you can do this. You're healthy, you're not old, where you can actually see and look at the music sheet and see. Like you can go to Muay Thai and not feel like you're 80 years old and you can't stand on your feet. So I think I think a lot of people probably don't appreciate until something comes up that they actually really could have so much hobbies and so much fitness and well-being, but you have to understand that if you don't do it now, when?
That is also an amazing mindset to have. Like so how does your what is your daily routine? Like how do you include these things, like for example?
So I have actually I don't journal in a way which is very long, but I do journal, and my journaling has nothing to do with feelings. It has nothing to do with what I think. You know what it is? It's simply, and I have it here, This is my journal. I simply write what I eat, how many hours I have slept, what time I went to bed. And the reason why is, if you eat well, like if your food is genuinely healthy, right? And if you drink water, and I write how much water I drink. If you eat well, healthy food, if you drink enough water during the day, and if you sleep 6 to 8 hours minimum a day, right? Then automatically you will feel good. You will feel like you have the energy to do stuff. You will feel you're awake, you're not feeling sleepy. And so the only thing which I really make sure that my routine has is writing down what I eat. And you see very quickly, because sometimes it's fine to have like a treat where you eat fast food or horrible food for you and so on. That's completely fine. However, I would say in my journal, hey, you've eaten fries and burger for like 5 days in a row now with no dinner and with sweets for snacks. Like, come on. And no wonder why you feel bad. And then you look at your journal and you're like, yeah, there's a reason and I can fix this. So routine really is I wake up, I force myself to write good things in my journal, meaning having a very healthy smoothie with like fruit, banana, oats and so on in it, like protein powder. And I write it in my journal like this has been done. I force myself to fill up this bottle of water, which I have to drink at least 4 a day, because that would be 2 liters minimum, normally 3 liters, but at least so that I know that at 12, if I haven't drank 2, it means I'm midday and I have not drank my water that I need to drink. So I would go and fill it up, and then magically, if I eat well, drink enough water, and sleep enough, after my work, which I finish, it depends on the days. In the startup, sometimes you work super late. Sometimes you have, you can work normal hours, like, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And at 7 p.m., my gym closes at 11 p.m. I have time. And when you drink well, honestly, I skip the gym when I'm dehydrated because I feel I have more energy. So knowing facts about your human body, your biological body, just makes you be able to do those things in the first place.
Yes. Let's jump to the next question. You've explored the intersection of art and machine intelligence. So what are your thoughts on the role of AI in the creative process?
Yeah, so I have mixed thoughts on that, honestly, and I'm still not sure what to think. Like, for example, during the pandemic, I started to do digital art because I paint. I do like, you can see it, I do like some physical paintings, right? But during COVID, I was doing a lot of digital art, and it brought me a lot of pleasure. And I was really happy when I was drawing like that. And I stopped doing it. I'll be very honest with you. I stopped doing it because you go in mid-journey and you have a digital drawing, which is better than yours. And it's like, well, then why am I even bothering? I enjoyed the idea that what I was doing was hard, and that to get to a very nice image, you'd have to have a lot of skills and hours put into it. But no, that is not the case anymore. Honestly, it removed my desire to do it. That's why actually I turned into painting more, like physical painting. And now we're going to have robots probably who are going to do paintings, like physical paintings themselves. And then I don't know what I will think. What I think is that's why writing as well to me is kind of safe, honestly, because like even if an AI can write beautiful words and so on, I genuinely believe that it's all going to be like the nuances of a character and so on, and I think I would genuinely enjoy reading the psychology from a human rather than an AI, just because it would make me feel more interested in the book. I want to know a human is thinking that around human society, to have debates and whatever. I don't want to have a debate with an AI regarding that stuff, right? At least not in fictional books. And so regarding art, I feel like the professional community can largely benefit from it, actually, because you can go faster, right? So if you are working in cinema or illustrations or whatever, it basically means that you can do more with less. And then you can have, like a multitude of different agencies who can put out, and then it's going to be meritocracy, right? Like who puts out the best content that you want to watch or that you want to read. And then it's going to be the same game. It's just create the best content and you win. And actually people can do that with less budget now, so that can open the door for more like smaller agencies, rather than having to have a huge budget, be a huge company to be able to do entertainment. So I think that there are opportunities, like 100%. It depends on, I think it depends on the perspective that you want to have on it. And I think that people who will have the right mindset will know that they have to adapt. Whatever happens, they have to adapt, and they will adapt, and they will win. But you have to have that mindset, because I think fighting this is as futile as fighting when they were like the printing industry, for example, when before printing you have a lot of people working in the industry of like just like telling each other about something or whatever. Then you had the printing. Imagine at the time people fighting for printing to not happen. Like at the end of the day, things have been set into motion. You can't stop it. So I would just encourage people to get creative, and creative means finding new ways of thinking and finding new solutions. Creative is not just, you know, making art on a paper. It's seeing the world and seeing your opportunities. So, you know, for me, that means right now focusing on writing. So Metos is very safe for me, in my opinion, for AI, because writers are not going to disappear. I'm focusing on painting, physical painting. And it depends on who you are and what is your job and how you can actually turn that to your benefit.
Okay. So next, this is something like I want to ask you. So how are you this wise at such a young age? Like,
say that again.
How are you so wise at such a young age? Like you have so much wisdom. So
a lot of people ask me that. I think it's parenting. I think that it's the very unfair thing that people don't mention, because parenting is so unfair. If you were born in different families, you automatically, no matter what society does, you will just be starting from a point which is different, and that is unfair. But I think, you know, we were not privileged in any way. Like, you know, my family is not wealthy at all, and so on. It was not unfair from that perspective, but they were, my parents are the polar opposites to each other. So my father is extremely open-minded. He loves science. He loves new ideas. He loves like analyzing everything. My mother is an accountant who is very religious, loves law and order. She's not that open-minded. She has a lot of qualities, but it's not that. And they kept debating all my life on every topic under the sun since I was born. And they never treated me like a child regarding like language, you know. So they would always argue, always debate. They would not agree on anything, you know, on who to vote for politically, economically. And I think a lot of, and that really made me able to think like deep on many subjects, because they did not agree on things. So I heard the pros and cons all the time. And that was something that really, really struck me when I went to other parents' houses with my friends. The two parents usually would not talk about anything or debate about anything, really. The parents usually agreed on things. So at the table and whatever, there was no need for debate, because they would say, yeah, we voted for X. And that was it, you know? Whereas my parents would be there like, how dare you vote for him? He passed this law and this law that caused this. And my mother would say, yes, but didn't you see that this person, however, did that? And you're just sitting there and you're like, oh, so they were both right and wrong in a way. You know, what is the middle ground? Whereas other kids, I feel, were treated like kids and were told, oh, we are voting X because of X, but there was no friction, there was no, and therefore when they were actually rebelling, either they kept the opinions of their parents, either the moment that they saw a fact that was basically showing that their parents actually didn't know as much as they thought they did, they just reject their parents' opinion, saying they're old, they don't get it. But maybe they do get it, but you don't know the nuances of their opinion. You don't know why they think what they think, right? You don't know the other side, because you never had to understand what actually was there. So I think debating is healthy in the sense that you have to surround yourself with people who don't share the same ideologies as you necessarily. It doesn't mean like befriending them or whatever. It doesn't mean that. It means listening to what they have to say and not label them, and just hearing their arguments. And there will be some arguments that you say, I cannot defend that. That doesn't make sense. But there will always be some things that they say, they're humans at the end of the day, where there's a reason why they believe it. You see what I mean? And so if you can reach the truth, that's important. And I think, you know, there are some cases where nowadays, for example, Khalif, you know, I don't know whether you've heard the controversy of the boxer in the Olympics, where a man boxing in women. Everyone is saying that he's a woman, and I say, why? And they say, because the media say so. Okay, if you're interested in the truth, you're looking at what the media say, and the media say that the Olympics committee said that they were women. And when you look at the report, the official report, why they said it was women, if you look at the official report, it says because they checked their passport. So all the media saying they're women, they don't say, yeah, because on the passport it was written women. That's not the truth. The truth is their passport says it's a woman, not that it is a woman. So the idea is that people were not actually looking at what is true. They were just repeating things, looking at the source of truth. And that's important, for example, when you're a software engineer, because you have documentation as opposed to tutorials, as opposed to Stack Overflow and so on. And the way usually that you understand whether what you're doing is the correct way or not, you look at the documentation. And yes, you have a lot of tutorials on YouTube, you have a lot of Medium blog posts. Usually a lot of them contain errors. ChatGPT also contains errors, but the documentation is the source of truth, right? So that's as an engineer, like, to me, I don't care if it is the BBC or if it is whoever the person on the street says it is a woman. I care about why. What is your source of truth? What does it say? And the fact is, the only chromosome testing ever that have been done showed XY. They have been contesting, fine, but let's do another one. And then people say, oh, she has a condition. What is the name of the condition? What is the name of the condition? How do you know that there is a condition? We don't know. The only thing we know is there's a passport that says female. But all the rest shows that there is something there. So, and I think that showed, for example, how a lot of people are not used to question why is it that they think something. Just because you hear it from somewhere doesn't mean that it's true. And in the age of misinformation, this is very important. In the age of media, it is very important too, because media, the way that they can manipulate someone is by omitting things. It's by what they say is not wrong, but they are not giving the information which is needed for understanding that information in the context. So, for example, if the BBC says the Olympics said she was a woman, the BBC is not lying, but the BBC is misinforming you in that there is omission in the fact that the Olympics said she was a woman only based on passport. No further testing has been done. And so when you look around you, and this is again something thanks to my parents that I know, because my parents kept on disagreeing with each other, and I had to look at who is true. Why is my mother right? Why is my mother wrong? Why is my father right? Why is my father wrong? They never agreed on things. And so when you are able to see a problem online where people clash, you're like, okay, let's just stick to the facts. What's happening there? And more people need to be committed to the truth. A lot of people read the media, read the news, read it on Twitter and so on to kind of prove their point instead of understanding what's going on there. So I think that's what maturity is. I think genuinely, it's just trying to understand the truth, trying to reach the truth, trying to reach the facts, and not being told what to think.
Okay. So let's move on to the next question. How have your experiences in various fields contributed to your personal growth, like studying politics, moving on to like co-founding Custodian, then Metos, then the journey of Yago's code. So how has it
honestly, the one thing that I underestimated was how much sport would shape me. I feel like when I grew up, I was signed up, for example, in judo when I was a kid. So I was doing judo, it was cool. And I signed up for like ice skating and so on. And all of those on my actual personality, I felt had even more of an impact than just any classes, because like in judo, you have to repeat the values of the sport and so on. And you have to be careful to not hurting someone. You also know that you can't fight someone who is bigger than you, because then there are consequences and dangers. It kind of teaches you like things about life that you can only know if you face them physically. Same for boxing, by the way. Boxing is huge in my personality shaping because you're in a ring with someone who is meant to be your equal, and you trust the institutions that the person in front of you is your equal. The moment that the opponent in front of you, especially in a place like the Olympics, for example, is not your equal, this is where you say, there's something there in the institutions that is wrong, you know. And
Yeah.
and but not only that, but also when you're fighting in boxing, there's no one to help you out. It's real power, it's real meritocracy in a way, if the conditions are right. Because you're literally saying, I'm winning this. There's no middle ground. I either win or lose. At the end of the day, you know, and that can give you like a mentality, especially in the startup market, for example, which is like, okay, we're all in a ring, you know, who is winning this, and all the conditions there. And so sports really did actually shape my mind in a way which was most beneficial, I feel, and which was also most beneficial to my way of seeing the world. Like, for example, I studied politics, right? And I had a course that I took, for example, on gender studies. And I felt that that course was very potentially toxic for me, because it had brought me at that time for a few months around the idea that the world is just all oppression, you know, and that it teaches you how to read every single situation possible under the lens of there is an oppressor and an oppressed, which is quite further. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, you know, like again, as I said, like in capitalistic societies, for example, the end result is not perfect. There will be problems, but it's better than other systems. So only focusing on the dynamics of someone always has to be very oppressed and it's very bad and it's destroying the world. Like, I felt that was weird. And I didn't feel like that was critical thinking, really. So actually, when I studied politics, it was, I think, the moment when I realized, hang on, like, who are running those organizations? They were just teachers who have gone on to have a PhD. They were people not smarter or not dumber than me. They were just normal people. Yet those people somehow get to, not brainwash, depending on the people that they speak to, they get to dictate the way of thinking, the way of seeing the world. And that way of seeing the world, I thought, was quite nocive. It was not very productive, and it was lacking information. And so, studying politics made me go from someone who was very naive, thinking that I was going on to save the world, to actually look at facts and say, this is not what we're doing here. We're not really saving the world. We're just complaining, no good solution, and pointing fingers when actually we're not that oppressed. So sports helped me way more regarding this. And coding, of course, I think everyone should learn how to code just because it gives you like an appreciation for logical thinking, you know, like, again, like the fact that you have to look at the documentation as the source of truth is something that every single citizen on earth should have in their mind. Look at the source of truth, look at the facts, look at what actually works. And thinking in terms of like algorithms, you know, as well, for a personal life perspective, like having a very complicated things being made possible because you just divide it into little steps. You say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you get there eventually. And having this mindset of being able to hold something very complicated in your head, whether that's a goal or a situation or something else, bring it down in your head conceptually in many different little things, and going through them sequentially with logic, and it gives you like a sort of like consistency and a way of understanding the world in general. Because you have to hold things in your head conceptually all the time. I feel like coding and sports were the most beneficial to my personal growth ever. And I feel like some things like politics, for example, I felt like it sounds contradictory, right? Because politics is meant to help people and bring them together. And I felt like that was actually probably not the good experience that I had hoped for. And then I had experience, of course, in banking. I didn't like the work that I was doing, and I was at Goldman Sachs for an equity research internship. A lot of people say that the culture at Goldman Sachs is quite cutthroat and so on, and I agree. But what I saw was a bunch of people who enjoyed it. You know, they enjoyed the culture, they agreed to the culture, and I have no problem with that. Minded, I hated my job. Like, I hated the spreadsheets and so on. And my manager was pretty mean to me, but I understand why she was mean to me, because I was complaining a lot, because I didn't like my job. So I understand it. I thought the culture was was fine. If people want that and they enjoy that and they're productive under that, no problem with that. So, and it's seen as the devil by a lot of people, even a lot of my friends who studied other subjects, but they haven't experienced it, so they can't really know. But I guess it just boils down to sports and coding as the things that really, I think, made me like a more decent person.
So how music, did music help you?
Music helped me for when I grew up in terms of logical structure, because I was not doing music in a very creative way. I was doing a lot of musical theory. And I hated school, and I did not like maths at school, especially. And I was spending, 12 hours a week in musical theory courses in total. And musical theory has a lot of maths, like it has a lot of patterns. It has a lot of analysis. Rhythm is a lot of analysis. It was difficult. It was actually harder than my school exams. And learning piano, violin, it's great for the memory as well. Like music saved me, I think, genuinely, because I was so ahead of a lot of my peers just based on the fact that I was using more of my brain after school for analyzing things. But it was not music like just playing in your room the guitar to impress the girls. It was very technical, and that is important. Because it's fine to play guitar, for example, randomly and liking music. That's completely fine, and that's probably better for you for your relationships, for your social circles, for your social integration. That's fine. Me, the music really has helped me for the technicality of it, and so I recommend it to a lot of parents.
Okay, so that's the end of the long answers questions.
Good.
So let's jump on to the rapid fire. So we have 6 questions, and you'll be answering all these questions in like a 1 word or like 1 sentence, like very, very short answers.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Yes.
All right.
So let's start.
Okay.
First programming language you learned?
Swift.
Okay. Biggest challenge in founding biggest challenge in founding custodian?
European VC.
Okay. 1 word to describe your journey in technology?
Hard work.
1 book that you've recently read that has changed your perspective?
That less people committed to truth than I thought they were.
Okay. So what's the book's name?
Oh, a book. Sorry, I thought a sentence. Oh, a book that I read recently that I liked.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sure. A lot of them. Beware of PT.
Okay.
That was the name.
Like, who was your mentor, and what about him or her inspired you the most?
What about what? Sorry.
Who was your mentor? Who was the mentor you looked up to, and what about him or her inspired you the most?
My mentor was Jeremy Hindle, and what inspired me the most was the fact that he was both a genius and also extremely good at reading people.
Okay. What's the driving thought or motivation that gets you out of bed each morning and keeps you pushing forward?
Love of life.
That's a sweet answer. Next, we are going to jump onto a segment known as Explain It in Layman Terms. So it's just one thing. So could you explain the concept of atomic design in a way that even a 5-year-old can understand? Like, that's what we call like layman terms, right? So the concept of atomic design in a way that a 5-year-old can understand.
All right, let me try this. When you look at a tree, it looks complicated. It's basically like a lot of leaves, a trunk, and it looks like one big object.
Yeah.
And when you draw a tree, it may be very hard for the tree to look realistic. But if you actually break down to what it is, you would just draw a little branch with a lot of leaves on it.
Yeah.
Then next to it, you would have another line with a lot of lines on it. Then you have another line with a lot of lines on it. And you repeat that multiple times. The line and a lot of lines on it, which are the leaves, it's simply an atom, right? The trunk that you draw underneath it will be something like an organism, right? Like everything that you perceive and see in terms of what you can create is going to be broken down in a lot of different elements, and you can basically organize them by how much of them are repeating. And so you can go faster.
Yes. So
I don't know if that was good. I don't think that was good, but I hope it's going to be for someone who is like at least 13-year-old.
Okay. How would you explain the practical benefits of atomic design in UI UX? That is what you do, right?
Yeah, there are different benefits to it, right? Like I would say the benefit number one is for consumer, always, because it gives them consistency in the experience, so they will know where things are, and they will understand intuitively where to look at things, like where to click for adding something, where to go to for editing something, where to go to for doing something which are more nuanced on the platform. So without that, there would be no atomic design. The most important thing is the fact that it is good for the consumer, and Airbnb, I think, was the first company to really be outwards with that. The second reason why is because it makes it easy for the designer to work with engineers, because there's a common language. You understand, the designer understands what is an atom, what is an organism, and whatever. And when they design things, they know that they can reuse what they've done, so that the engineer can basically create their work in a very organized manner, in a very efficient manner. And so 2 and 3 are linked. It's communication within the team. It's the fact that when you onboard a new engineer, for example, they know where this button is, they know where this icon is. When they just look at the design, they intuitively know how much of that design is actually going to be new, how much they can actually reuse. Just because things look so consistent, they are like, oh, this is likely to be in the atom folder in that file. Like automatically they would know that within 2 days. There's no chaos in the code base, basically. So I would say it's good for the consumer, good for the teams, good for the actual experience of coding as well.
Okay. So that's the end of today's episode. So, Nathalia, it's been an absolute pleasure diving into your journey today, and from your early days in political theory to your groundbreaking work in technology and entrepreneurship. Your transition from politics to tech is a true career reinvention, or you can say it's a multidisciplinary pivot, and that beautifully reflects the power of adaptability and continuous learning. So you've shown us how skills from seemingly different domains can be leveraged to create something truly unique and impactful for the society. For everyone listening, I hope you're inspired as I am by Nathalia's ability to break boundaries and continuously evolve. Whether you're navigating the tech world or pursuing your creative passions, remember, it's never too late to redefine success on your own terms. Thank you so much, Nathalia, for joining us today, and to our listeners.
Thank you so much.
Stay curious, stay driven, and we'll see you in the next episode. Anything you want to add, Nathalia? Like, to end the episode?
No, I just want to thank you so much for this wonderful episode you've done with me, and I don't want to learn about you, by the way, as well. Are you a student, or you?
Yes.
In computer science as well, or something else?
I'm actually a student from a college in India. It's Muthoot Institute of Technology and Science. It's in a state called Kerala, and in a district called Ernakulam. So I'm a BTech student. I'm taking a bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering. And I did this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, electrical and electronics. But you know, like something that's interesting is that I really wanted to learn coding. Like in my 11th and 12th standard, the stream I chose was computer science, and I was really in love with that. Like coding was what do you say? I really loved coding, writing the algorithms. Most people hate doing the algorithm part, but I don't know. I loved it. So, but then somehow.
Well, that's good. I hope that one day you build something that you can create something for your community. It can be an app, it can be something. There's so much you can create. And in India, there's so many opportunities.
Yeah. And now I'm like doing electrical engineering, and yeah, I've been thinking about doing something that links my both passions now, electrical engineering and coding.
Yeah.
So that's
sure.
about me.
That's
I'm in my
amazing.
third year.
I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
so happy to have met you, and I wish you the best on your journey. And I'm sure you will find things to combine those two together. They're very difficult things, so it's really impressive that you're studying that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bhavana.
Bye.
See you soon.
Yes, see you soon.
Bye.